It's time to get you caught up with all things sports.
Yes! 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 Yes!
On the throw-in.
One thing is certain. None of this is possible without you, the listeners.
From baseball, football, wrestling, and more, covering local Cincinnati sports, stories, news, and highlights.
Why is he always calling me meat?
With your host, Justin Trento.
When it's all said and done, we're going to look back and remember this is what started it all.
Available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Let's play the ball! Let's play the ball!
Alrighty, well, good morning and welcome to another episode of The Throw-In here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. My name is Justin, and if you guys are watching this live, whether it is on YouTube or Facebook or even Twitter, I want to, you guys notice a little thing that's different, and you guys may want to come in and comment, oh, Justin, today is Thursday, August 31st. Well, let me explain here before we get underway this morning. I told you guys back on Tuesday that we are going to do an episode on Wednesday. Now, I had a doctor's appointment that took all morning long to get to and handle. So I was busy in the morning. And then I had a commitment in the afternoon that I attended. Well, I got together this program that we're going to have for the next 2 hours done yesterday. But, you know, I get home last night. I'm tired. The wife's tired. Not pointing fingers. I'm not blaming her, but you know, I was going to initially do a program from 10 p.m. to midnight so I could make sure I could get an episode in. But I knew that because I know my body. I know I get tired by 10 o'clock, and when I get tired, I become a little slurish. I become unfocused. And I wanted to make sure I put on a good enough show for you guys that you guys could enjoy it. And I just didn't want a lazy show. So last night I took it easy. You know, the wife, when I got home last night, she made me they make this Gold Star chili dip where you combine cans of Gold Star chili, and you also you mix that with sour or cream cheese and then sharp cheddar cheese, and you bake that. And it's delicious, but you know, the one downfall is that you can't resist it, although it just leaves you in the toilet because that's a lot of chili. And you normally make fries with it. You put over fries. You know, you can just eat it plain how it is. So anyways, I didn't get to last night's episode. So how today's going to work, it's going to be a bit different. So if you guys are watching this live, I apologize ahead of time that it does say Wednesday, August 30th, 2023, because the episode is for yesterday, Wednesday, August 30th. So we're going to talk on behalf of yesterday's events. I also have the NFC North predictions that we will talk to you guys about. And then later on this afternoon, I don't know what time, but I promise you there will be another live event. So you're going to get a total of 4 hours of Justin and the Throw-In talking about sports. And I know it's a lot. I get it. So, but there's a lot of sports to talk about. You know, and I was going through my list of, all right, what am I talking about today in the first episode? What am I talking about today in the second episode? Because I already know that we'll be talking about the NFC North in this episode. We'll talk about the NFC South later on this afternoon. But overall, I was like, you know, we'll talk about the Reds. We'll talk about the Bengals. We'll talk about, you know, right now we got the Angels going on and the waiver wires that seem to be lingering around Major League Baseball as we are on the last day of August, first day of September, tomorrow on the final home stretch of Major League Baseball. Well, I noticed the last couple of days, I mentioned nothing about professional wrestling. So I found a couple stories we could talk about here in this morning's episode. And by the way, I'm a bit disappointed. Me and my mother has had a routine for the past several months, which is a good routine, where she's called me every time that she goes to work. Well, she lives out on the West Coast, so around this time, which is 10:06 a.m. on a Thursday morning, and West Coast is going to be right now it's 7:06, and she would be calling me, and we just chatted up for the next 30 minutes. I texted her this morning, hey, I'm doing a recording, and I'm not going to be able to answer your phone call today. And she says, oh man, sucks. And it does suck. So I'll hopefully be able to get in a phone call with her a little bit later. And some people may go out there and say, Justin, you're crazy. Why don't you just not do an episode today or yesterday and just get one done tomorrow, or do a 2-hour episode today? Well, I've noticed that covering the football predictions and previews of each division takes a minimum of 30 minutes, 2 segments, and takes a majority of an hour. So I'm not going to spend 2 hours talking about 2 divisions. Plus, we got baseball, a lot to talk about in baseball. We got some good news in football, and there's also some other news going around that we'll still get into. Plus, I want to get these stories talked about now, because coming up Friday, we do have to talk about some wrestling. And tomorrow, to finish off the week, which will be Friday, we'll have to talk about Payback, which is going to be this weekend. So we do have a lot of things that we have to address, and so every episode is important. So that's kind of how this is going to work, unfortunately. So, but you know what? You get these episodes. I like it. It gets me back in the rhythm. It gets me back in the routine. I enjoy it. It's going to be a lot of talking. The wife is home. She has a doctor's appointment later on this afternoon. Otherwise, she hasn't been feeling under the weather. She's going to be relaxing today, which is a good thing, so I could attend to her in between, get ready for the show. And I think it's interesting. I think allergies are starting to flare up. We're at the end of August, and you have, it's not your 98-degree temperature for the first time this week since all of summer. We've been able to open up the windows and turn off the AC for a couple hours. Matter of fact, all day. I like it. I may do that again today. But allergies are definitely kicking in. I'm a little croaked. You could tell from earlier this week, allergies are flaring up in the nostrils. Took some medicine, so hopefully I feel much better. But we got a lot to talk about. So let's get right down into business. And let's start off with some local Cincinnati sports topics today, because Joe Burrow is finally back at practice. Full team practices. He's suiting up. He's ready to play some ball. I mean, you just wouldn't be better. And this was honestly a true scare for me at the beginning of preseason. All right. When, he goes down on July 27th, a little over a month ago, on first day of practice. He wasn't contacted. He wasn't hit by contact. He didn't go twist an ankle. He was simply taking a snap, running out, what was it? Maybe to the right, I believe, and then just goes down because of a calf strain. And what scares me about this is that this is the same calf strain that he's had surgery on a couple years ago that took him out for the remainder of the season. And I say, whenever you re-injured the same injury, which, it's like, okay, I had back surgery a few years ago. I had a lumbar discectomy on my L5S1 a few years ago. I've also had some meniscus, not meniscus, but, knee cleanings where they'd go in arthroscopically in your knee and they'd shave off some bone and clean it up and remove any loose particles. And I know through experience is once you have surgery, once you get hurt, especially if it's a serious injury, you're going to have similar injuries, or you're prone to have the same injury down the road. I'm going to have to, within the next month or two, I'm going to have to get a fusion on my lower back. And you just can't help it. Is once you start, it's the domino effect. And so for Joe Burrow, it took a scare a couple years ago. We don't know if he was going to be the same quarterback coming back, but he looks to be the top elite quarterback. He's in the conversations with guys like Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen. He's considered one of the elite quarterbacks. He's taken the team to a Super Bowl, to several AFC championships. And as the AFC conference alone grows and becomes a better conference each and every year, at least so it seems like, you need them full on confidence. And the other problem is that, obviously we are scared about our offensive line. But so it was a bit scary when we saw Joe Burrow go down a month ago, because a lot of questions ran through our heads. All right, we signed Trevor Siemian to the during the offseason as a potential backup quarterback. Well, guess what? That didn't turn out, and he got released earlier this week. So now we're sticking with Jake Browning, and we'll talk about the practice squad here in a moment, because we picked up a quarterback I'll tell you about here in just a few moments. But what I also think, for me, also got nervous about was that no one on social media, no one from the front office or coaches or players could really give you a validated update on Joe Burrow's status. They kept it very vague, and they kept it very minimum. Well, the thing is that this is a calf strain. If it was a sprained ankle or a sprained wrist or a sprained thumb, a cortisone injection, you could tape it up, and there you go. Well, this is not the case. This is a calf strain. This is a muscle, right? If this was a shoulder, this was a knee, put a brace on it. Get some athletics tape, and you'll be good to go. Joe Burrow, all you could do is, sure, you could probably give them a cortisone injection, rub some in gay, and put a sleeve on it. But honestly, that's all you can do with the type of injury that he has. There's typically no set timetable besides taking the proper physical therapy, maybe icing it, maybe heat, a massage, to really give you the best treatment. But you can't sit here and say, all right, he's going to be better in a week. He's going to be better in a month. There was rumors and reports at the beginning of August that stated that Joe Burrow was going to be out for several weeks. But we interpret that as he was going to be out for several weeks during the regular season. Well, Trevor Siemian's out the door. They released Trevor Siemian, and I think it's a good decision. I don't think Trevor Siemian quite worked well with the Cincinnati Bengals and their format. And he didn't necessarily hold up during the preseason games. And I'm not going to waste, I don't want the franchise to waste a single dollar, a single penny on someone who can't live up to their expectations. Now, if he came in during the preseason and he was lights out, I'd say let's hold on to him, because he's a better option, in my belief still, than Jake Browning. But we released him at the beginning of the week, and then now Joe Burrow is back at it again at practice. Full pads, everything, which is exciting because you know the Bengals would not let go Trevor Siemian if Joe Burrow was not ready. Now, one of my concerns that I have here moving forward is Joe Burrow 100%? Because I know Joe Burrow's work ethic. I know Joe Burrow's, his passion for the game. I know he's going to sit there and he wants to get out and play every snap and every down of every single ball game. But if if you enter in the season not 100%, that we need him to be, and we can't promise. You could put down the best offensive linemen on paper, but you cannot promise that this offensive lineman is going to do their job until we see it week one. And that's protecting Joe Burrow. So because of that, I hope that he's not coming back and saying, all right, I'm 90%. Let me come back. I hope that if he's coming back, he is 100%, because I don't think the Bengals can afford to have Burrow go down at any point of this season. I also don't think and in the AFC alone, there's little room for errors by a team. That means anything that we were concerned about during the preseason, and trust me, there were concerns during the preseason: offensive line, defensive backs, safeties, cornerbacks. Hopefully, we're all confident enough that we answered those questions for the offseason, because there's no room for errors. With the division that Lamar Jackson signed his contract, so I have high expectations of him. You're playing in the same conference as Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, okay? You got Justin Herbert, who signed his contract extension. So he, with that behind him, he can focus solely on football. Patrick Mahomes, you got Jimmy Garoppolo out there in Las Vegas. Tua Tagovailoa is set to return. Trevor Lawrence is in Jacksonville, and he impressed last season. And then on top of that, you have to also consider the newcomers: Anthony Richardson, C.J. Stroud. So AFC has little room for errors. But I'm great to see Joe Burrow back in action with the squad. So we talked about Joe Burrow returning. I'll talk about coming up next after our first time out, because we've got to take our first time out of the program. I'll talk about the practice squad, show you what that has to offer, what they have to offer here. And my thing is, and then we'll get to some baseball talks as the Bengals, as the Reds, avoided a sweep. They finished off the road trip 5-4, which I think is solid. Okay, we're on the next time they play is a 4-game series against the Cubs, beginning 2 games tomorrow. So we'll have to pay attention to that. We'll talk a little bit about that. Waiver wires and all that stuff. We got plenty to talk about on today's program. If you guys are watching us on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, Twitter page, thank you. Hit that like button, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe. If you guys are downloading us and listening to us on our audio platforms, we welcome you. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you miss any actions, any segments, any episodes, and you want to check us out, please feel free to head on over to our webpage at www.tncsportstalkshow.com, where you can see all the latest videos, blogs, episodes, audio, contact information. You want to be a future guest on the show, forms to be filled out over there. Check out www.tncsportstalkshow.com. All right, we're going to step aside, come on back, and talk more sports. You guys are listening to The Throw-In right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
about to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's go, let's be free with me. Be free. Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free.
Oh gosh, gotta apologize. Allergies are flaring up. I feel like my nasal area is congested, but I can't get nothing out. And then my throat just feels like there's an itch in the back of the throat here. But it seems to always happen at the wrong time, you guys. Especially right when we come back from break. But welcome on back to the throw-in here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. This program is given to you thanks to StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, where you can create videos, podcasts, host interviews, and even conduct business meetings. Check out their free version today at StreamYard.com. Man, I hate allergies these. I love the weather change because it's not 98 degrees outside. Okay, I absolutely just absolutely hate the weather changing because of the allergies. So, but all right, we got some football to talk about. I mean, I know this isn't too much of a big concern, okay, but the Bengals announced their practice squad as they moved their roster down to 53 men. And before, they have 2 spots remaining. You can have up to 16 players. And one of the interesting additions to the practice squad was a free agent signing that took place earlier this week with quarterback Will Grier, who joined the practice squad for the Bengals. He's 6'1", 220 pounds. It's his 5th year out of, he's the 5th year option out of West Virginia. Okay, 3rd round pick back in 2019 with the Carolina Panthers. He spent 2 years with the Panthers and 2 years with the Cowboys. Okay, in 2019, he had 2 games. He went 28-52 with 228 yards. And so Will Grier is going to be joining the practice squad. Now, as I mentioned in our opening segment, Joe Burrow's back, which is great news. We have Jake Browning as our backup quarterback on the squad. And then we have Will Grier as our practice squad quarterback. And here's what I got to say about all of that in this retrospect. Maybe it's just me specifically for the Bengals. But, I do have a genuine fear of Joe Burrow, what we saw a month ago with his calf strain. I feel, and maybe this is all a work. Maybe this was a reason to say, all right, he got hurt. He's going to get hurt, so he's out for the entire preseason. Because Joe Burrow wants to be out there. Social media will be bombarding Zach Taylor about why isn't Joe Burrow playing any snaps? And maybe this ultimate decision was to get him ready for next Sunday when he goes and takes on Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. Because you already know that Cincinnati has trouble in general playing the Browns. Burrow is 1-3. So maybe he needs that extra work, that extra time. Like I said, hypothetically, I don't know. I'm not going to pick and choose. But when you see an injury that reoccurs in Cincinnati, in Joe Burrow particularly, and you know how much we're going to rely on him to get the job done, to be able to move in and out of pocket, and to be able to make calls on the fly. When we know that, it's like, and he's had injuries, I'm worried about later on this year, this calf strain is going to come back and haunt him. And I don't know the confidence level I have for a guy like either Jake Browning, who I just haven't seen enough, or Will Grier. Now, earlier this past weekend, we saw Trey Lance get traded to the Cowboys. And so now Jerry Jones, right, Mike McCarthy has Dak Prescott, Trey Lance, and Cooper Rush. Now, we already know what Trey Lance can do, even though I feel like we haven't seen enough of Trey Lance. We already know what Cooper Rush can do. I mean, he held his own pretty well against for the Cowboys when Dak Prescott went down last year. So I'm not worried about Cooper Rush. A lot of people may say, "Oh, Jerry Jones, what are you doing? You're crazy." I honestly, at the end of the day, think of this as a really pretty sweet deal. Not only you have one, but not just two, but three quarterbacks that can actually play football. And you also, and if not, hey, guess what? You have a bargaining chip throughout the course of the season for a player. Is if you need to go out there in the first few weeks and go snag yourself an extra receiver or go snag yourself an extra defender, well, guess what? You can offer a team that doesn't have a quarterback, maybe a team that, their starting quarterback is just not working out. So maybe with Indianapolis, if Anthony Richardson's not working out, if CJ Stroud, if Bryce Young's not working out, hell, if Tampa Bay Baker's Mayfield isn't working out because I'm not betting the bottom dollar on him again this year, maybe the Cowboys can work out a deal and get either trade Cooper Rush or even trade Trey Lance. This also provides the Cowboys in the scenario where we don't want a 49ers repeat where we had to use Christian McCaffrey as a quarterback. So I know there's a lot of ins and outs with that. So, but when you go back, we talk about Bengals quarterbacks, you look at Joe Burrow, but when you look at anyone else, I mean, great, you're saving salary cap expenses. And I get it. Trevor Siemian is probably not the best quarterback to be your backup. But if you sit down in that list of, Trevor Siemian, if you looked at Jake Browning, Will Grier, and I just don't know too much of Will Grier, and based off of the numbers I've seen, he hasn't really played much. I don't think he's expected to play. I would move Jake Browning to the practice squad, and I would keep Trevor Siemian to the, as a backup quarterback, or maybe the Bengals can go out and potentially find somebody. But I feel like maybe Cincinnati is sitting here on the haywire and saying, all right, listen, I'm not going to spend, X, Y, and Z for Trevor Siemian to sit on the bench, and I don't have confidence in him to go put him in the game. I could get the same results out of Jake Browning, and he's half the cost of Trevor Siemian. I get that. But it does get me concerned because I don't even know Jake Browning I don't know what he's capable of. And I get a big concern. I know he's been on the team. We had Brandon Allen a couple years ago, but it does get me a bit concerned throughout the course of the year. All right, talking about this, we have the Cincinnati practice squad. Hold up, just trying to find the right camera angle for you guys. And so we talked about Will Grier. You got Tanner Hudson, the tight end. We have 3 wide receivers and 2 offensive linemen. On the defense side, you have a safety, Michael J. Thomas. You have 2 cornerbacks, 2 linebackers, and 2 defensive linemen. I kind of wish, just hypothetically, that when you have the practice squad, people could play both ways. I know it's uncommon. I mean, it's not common to see I know it's not common in NFL today to see players play or two-way players, unless maybe you're on special teams. But when I look at this, it seems to be pretty even balanced. Like I said, 2 more spaces that the Bengals can use. I would say that it never hurts to have an extra offensive lineman. Like I said, I feel like the Bengals have a good offensive lineman. I feel like the Bengals could always use more, especially with injuries that are prone in Cincinnati for some reason. A name that really shouts out to me is Michael J. Thomas, the safety. And it questions me, but like I said, pretty even balanced when it comes down to this practice squad. And you're like, why are we really looking too far into a practice squad when that's all it is? And you're right, that's all it is. It's just a practice squad. But these are guys that could, when someone goes down, if Orlando Brown goes down, we may have to call on Nate Gilliam or Jackson Kirkland to come up to the main squad. And I feel, because, it's inevitable. You can't not have a season where all 53 men are healthy the entire year. It's impossible. It's impossible for baseball to have 27 men on your roster that will be healthy for all the entire 162 games. So I do feel like it's important to have a good enough, practice squad that you could quickly go to in a last minute resort. And like I mentioned, I've mentioned this before, I want to re-emphasize and highlight that the NFL has that emergency quarterback plan that on game day you can hire for 1 day only, like a 1 day contract, a free agent quarterback to fill in that's not a part of your 53-man roster. And because NFL wants to avoid what happened with the 49ers last year in the playoffs. So best way of putting this, I hope that the Bengals could captivate that advantage. I hope maybe most teams can capture that advantage. But I think we have a solid practice squad here. All right. Coming up next, we are going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, who snapped a couple games, a 3-game losing streak yesterday, beat the Giants to avoid a sweep, and they did it in outstanding fashion, let me say. Their road trip, they finally have a day off, but we're now going to enter in the month of September on a 4-game series against the Chicago Cubs on Labor Day weekend. We're talking about a 3-game series plus a game that will happen at 1 o'clock tomorrow at Great American Ballpark that makes up for the rainout day back in April. We'll talk about that. And I also want to talk about the Angels waving the white flag, throwing in the white towel by putting a whole bunch of players on waivers. That's still to come. You guys are listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Looking back at the good times before it all went down, climbed right up on the hillside, a different view of my life. You left me running on and on, but I don't care what you let
Alrighty, a lot of going on here. Be prepared for another episode later on this afternoon. You guys are watching us live on a Thursday. Hey, my glasses probably came in. Oh, great. What time am I going to do a show later on this afternoon? I don't know. But I will get a show done today talking about the NFC South for sure. But you know what? The Cincinnati Reds feels good to pick up the last win of a tough road trip, isn't it? The Reds went on to pick up the final game against the San Francisco Giants as they beat the Giants 4-1. And I think in really good fashion. I know the Reds haven't been playing also great lately. You know, they dropped 3 of 4 in Arizona. But you know what? They swept the Angels. They dropped 2 of 3 against San Francisco on a, 10-game road trip out to the West Coast, which, I mean, the last big road trip that they have and the last time they will go to the West Coast. So, I mean, everything is going to be out here on the East Coast now, which is great. I feel great. No more time zone changing. But you just got to deal with the teams over here. But they finish off the road trip 5-4, which is still above 500 baseball. And you have to take that as a win, wouldn't you not say? And they did it with a lot of help because, you know, Hunter Green was kind of not performing as well as lately. He goes 5 1/3 of an inning, giving up 3 hits, 1 run, walked the batter, striking out 5. And I think when you've had a slump like Hunter Green has had, I think going the distance he did and being able to hold on to the win, you got to say, hey, thank you. David Bell has to say thank you to Hunter Green and say thank you to the bullpen. Because they could have easily gave that game up. Okay, it was neck and neck majority of the time. Okay, Alexis Diaz picks up his 35th save on the season. But it's a really big bat coming out of a youngster, a young kid out of this ball club, and Christian Encarnacion Strand, who went 4 for 4 with 3 RBIs. He hit a 3-run bomb to straightaway center. And I'm like, yes, we need this. Catapult this. You know, Chicago beat Milwaukee yesterday 3-2. Okay. St. Louis beat San Diego 5-4. Chicago beat Milwaukee 3-2. I don't know the Pittsburgh Kansas City score, but Chicago won the series against Milwaukee. So they're up and up, which is a bit concerning because we're about to go into a 4-game series with the Cubs. But it's like we need a little bit of motivation to get us into this weekend. Because not only we don't just have a 3-game series, we have a 4-game series against the Cubs. And by the way, right now, if the Reds are on the outside looking into the wild card, and we're also looking, we're looking ahead on teams like the Giants, like the Diamondbacks, and like the Cubs. And just imagine we could head into Great American Ballpark, come back home, and probably one of the last times we're facing the Cubs overall in general, and be like, we could split the series. I say win the series. I'd go for winning the series. Because guess what? We're not facing the Diamondbacks anymore. We're not facing the Giants anymore. So playoff implications, if you're the Reds and if you're looking for a wild card position, playoff implications are going to come down to how well the Reds can finish off the season and then keeping an eye on the Cubs, on the Diamondbacks, and on the Giants. And you hope that they start losing. Okay, maybe even the Phillies. Because we also still have to look out for Miami that's behind us right now. Or I think, as a matter of fact, they may be ahead of us. But right now, it's a very close race. Talk about Tommy Edmonds' walk-off win yesterday against San Diego. It's helpful because, a lot of people are not mentioning the Cincinnati Reds. A lot of people believe that the Cincinnati Reds are going to fall off the edge of the earth. A lot of people believe, are still talking about the Padres, who are now like 8-9 games back of the wild card. Coming up this weekend in a weekend series, we talked about the Cubs and the Reds. We'll get more detailed into that. Phillies over in Milwaukee to face the Brewers. Pirates are facing the Cardinals. So pretty interesting weekend that we have ahead of us. But you know what's more interesting? Let's find out how the waivers work, you guys. All right, so I pulled up, this is an article that was written yesterday on MLB.com by Thomas Harrigan. Okay, this article is going to be related to the topic that I had to talk about today, and that has to do with the Angels just tossing in the white flag, the white towel. Okay, the Angels are calling it quits for the season, which means, we've been talking about all this all week long with Shohei Ohtani having a UCL, tear, and he's still playing offensively. Mike Trout, he's on and off the IL throughout the course of the year. He may be, and both of these players may very well be shut down for this year. And there are a lot of questions coming out for both of these ball players. Probably two of the greatest ball players to be playing in Major League Baseball today. Okay, talk highly of Shohei Ohtani. Can't compare him to anybody. But the Angels made a huge run effort this past offseason. And now, since they are closing in on the season, and it's not turning out the way that they want it to be. What I say by that is that the Angels have been committed and been contenders for that American League West and even the wild card in the American League for, I'd say, the first 4 months of the season. And coming up in August, the end of July, August, for some reason, maybe injuries, whatever the case may be, the Angels just seem to get further and further away from a postseason opportunity. The Angels built and signed a whole lot of players in the help attempt. All right, they got Anthony Rendon, you got Mike Moustakas, you got Lucas Giolito, Matt Moore, Hunter Renfroe, Randall Grichuk, in hope to build a team around Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout to help get to the postseason. Now, we're going to have a lot of talk about Shohei and Mike during the offseason, but the Angels decided to put a handful of players on the waivers. Okay? So let's talk about the waivers and how that works. So this was an article, right? They put starting pitcher Lucas Giolito, relief pitchers Matt Moore and Ronaldo Lopez, and outfielders Hunter Renfroe and Randall Grichuk outright on waivers. He also threw in Dominic Leone to the list. And then in his article, he also included guys from that are not part of the Angels list. Yankees outfielder Harrison Bader, Mets starter Carlos Carrasco, White Sox starter Mike Clevenger, and Tigers reliever Jose Cenero are all outright on waivers. Well, what does this mean for the Reds, right? Well, basically what ends up happening is that from worst team to best team, in that order, they'll have a chance to get some of these guys who's out on waivers. And if no one claims them, then they could become either free agents or they can stick with the ball club for the remainder of the year. Okay. In this sense, if you're the Reds and you may be thinking, all right, how can the Reds benefit from this? Well, if you're at the top of the list, you're probably a team that ain't looking for, you're probably shut down for the season. You ain't looking for anything serious. You're not going to go sign a guy for a month unless you're looking to get some of your starters some rest. And so you're honestly, a lot of times the bad records are not going to be beneficial off of this. But Cincinnati's right there in the middle, and they may need a pitcher. And these are all postseason qualified players. They may need a pitcher. They may need an outfielder. I would be interested in signing a guy like Harrison Bader or a Lucas Giolito if we get that opportunity to add on to this young roster to make a push for October. So how does this work? When a player is placed on the outright waivers, the other 29 teams have an opportunity to submit a claim for him. The claiming clubs assume responsibility for the remaining money owed to the claimed player. Okay, so we went to go pick up Mike Clevenger from the White Sox. Whatever he's left owed for this season, we would have to pay him out. Who is placed on the new 40-man roster. And they would have to be on the 40-man roster. Okay. Claiming priority is based on reverse winning percentage. So if a player is placed on the outright waivers and claimed by more than one team, the team with the worst winning percentage gets priority. If two or more claiming clubs are tied with the lowest percentage, the game's won, the priority goes to the club with the lowest percentage of games won in the previous season. So it dates back to the last season and then so forth. Could one team claim every player? Yes. Technically, yes. Making a successful waiver claim doesn't impact the club's claiming priority. So one club could theoretically claim every player. Never seen this happen, but you don't have to make room on your 40-man roster for it. And you have to pay everyone the remaining balance. So this is also what happens if a player goes unclaimed. If players who go unclaimed after being placed on the outright waiver simply remain with the team that waived them. And so this is important. Note that this is different than being designated for assignment. So you're putting them on waivers. Someone else can come by, pick them up, and they will collect the responsibility for the remainder of the season of, of their contract. And it's a reverse percentage. So the lowest percentage team has priority. And like I said, the idea is that the Colorado Rockies, for example, or Oakland Athletics, for example, they're not looking to go sign Mike Clevenger. They don't want. They gutted their team. They're not going to go look to pay money. The Colorado Rockies probably won't be interested at the position that they're at, knowing that really playoff opportunity is so far out there that they just probably don't have an ideal chance. They're not going to try to sign a few guys. So for me, this really pokes at the bear of the Cincinnati Reds, because I'm sure that San Diego Padres may be thinking to themselves, we may have everybody. We may want to pick up one, depending if we realistically have a chance. And since the Reds didn't pick anybody up during the trade deadline, if they have guys on the market, I would think that, hey, you're this much over. You need help in the bullpen. You need help at starting pitching. Why wouldn't you take the risk? I would take the risk if I was the Cincinnati Reds. And I feel, I understand, hey, I believe in the system. I'm not going to go spend, X dollar amount or give up anybody at the trade deadline because we are still planning for the system and I believe in everybody that we have. But at the same time, if now we're at, hey, this may cost you a 40-man roster position. I get that. But I would actually be very disappointed if the Reds don't make an attempt to claim anybody, especially maybe an outfielder or maybe even a pitcher to help this organization for the next month in a postseason attempt. If they don't, obviously, that their goals and their eyesight is clear. Stick with the plan. I'd be so upset because it's like, you're so close. You may not have another opportunity. But I think this sucks when it comes down to the Los Angeles Angels. They have basically unloaded their roster. They're trying to avoid luxury tax, going over the luxury tax. And I get that. But, man, I mean, now is what are their plans with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout in the offseason? And like I said, hopefully the Cincinnati Reds can capture at least one of these guys. Show us that you're serious. Hour number 1 of the program is complete. Come back for hour number 2, where we talk about the NFC North division, giving our previews and predictions, and talk a little bit about professional wrestling and what Kurt Angle had to say about his last match. That's still to come. Thank you guys for tuning into the Throw-In here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Inside your bedroom, we stopped counting the days, lost in the rhythm.
Alrighty. As soon as I went to break, you guys, I ended up spilling my drink all over my desk. Didn't ruin anything, but man. Hour number 2 here on the program is given to you thanks to Spreaker. From iHeartRadio, Spreaker, where you can listen to podcasts. You can also upload podcasts at Spreaker.com. Upload your podcast and distribute your audio podcast to all major platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all the major platforms. Can't miss it. You could also view your analytics and monetize your podcasts. Check out Spreaker.com for more information. Nice chill day today. Yesterday, we turned off the AC and let the windows open. Today, we're going to kind of do some things, but we're kind of dealing with some allergy issues. We'll see how that goes. All right. So throughout this week, we actually been kicking off hour number 2 in a conversation of promoting a website that I have been a huge part of beginning. I have a friend of mine that owns a store here. It's called Aspire and Glow. And his name is Tony. He owns Aspire and Glow. And he has a website. He's down here. If you guys live in Kentucky, his store is down here by La Rosa's off of Buttermilk. Okay, it's in a small area. Walgreens across the street, a BP gas station. There's also Petco in the near area, stuff like that. There's not a lot of traffic on there, but we go in because we like the incense. I just got myself a Halloween tapestry that we're gonna be putting up for decoration this year. I really enjoy it. He has rock and roll stuff of hoodies and t-shirts and jean jackets. He has just apparels, gems and jewels. If you're looking for like mood rings or just anything that symbolizes yourself, maybe your sign or stuff like that. Well, I came to him earlier this year. Said, man, you got to create a website. You got to go to the people, okay? Because business isn't 100% booming. Well, we have this website that we created. Kind of just want to walk you guys through what you have to offer for the website as we continue to build it. Today's the last day to get your $5 off your shoulder bags. It's by using promo code tie-dye. That's TIEDYE. Get these tie-dye colored shoulder bags. They're Himalayan bags. All right. And like I said, last day to use the promo code, but we have tie-dye t-shirts. They carry guardian stones, gemstone necklaces, stone bracelets, falsa blankets that are handmade, backpacks. They got Bob Marley. Let me see what else they got. From backpacks, item products, there's necklaces, blankets, bracelets, shoulder bags, jackets. They're all one of a kind, no one kinds alike. He gets them straight from the consumer, or he gets them straight from the consumer. So he gets them and marks them down as low as he can for you guys, the customer. And so it's easy to order. You click on some things, you choose your size, you choose your color. They got all sizes for everyone. I mean, you just can't let this pass by. I encourage you guys to check out the website. It is www.aspire-glow.com. That is www.aspire-glow.com. GLO, glow. Okay, and shop today. Like I said, last day. If you go on today and buy yourself a shoulder bag, a Himalayan. It's a tie-dye Himalayan shoulder bag, cross shoulder bag. If you buy that, use promo code tie-dye, TIEDYE, get $5 off on your purchase. So I recommend checking them out. Great person. If you guys are in the area, recommend checking out the store alone. So, all right. So I told you guys that we'll talk about some wrestling. And it seems, I guess maybe I'm a fan of CM Punk because it seems to me that he's always somewhere in the news, and when he's in the news, he boils my bubble, makes my water boil. Just it's bad. I tell you, I'll be honest with you, it is terrible on how bad it is. CM Punk yet again makes the news. Okay, and another rumor, locker room rumor, that he's yet again starting backstage drama. And this particular recent drama was against Miro, okay, aka Rusev, former WWE superstar. Now, according to this, was rumored that CM Punk is starting backstage drama once more by wrestlers. Let me clear that up, though, because CM Punk is actually, this was apparently cleared up by Punk and Miro that they were just joking. Okay, so this is false. But the reason why I bring this up today is because it does seem, and it does make sense, that CM Punk is always the one to be starting something in the backstage. He's done this before in AEW with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. He's done this before in the WWE. So it doesn't come to surprise that CM Punk, if he's on the news saying, hey, and it has to affiliate with controversy in the backstage area, it doesn't come to me by surprise. I will always say this. I do not hate CM Punk. I think he is a good person. I think that and listen, he's done stuff that a lot of us as human beings kind of wish we would do once in a while, especially when it comes down to speaking up against your boss and speaking up against what you believe in and what's right for not only you, but the people around you, your colleagues. And he went out there and he tried to become a UFC fighter. Didn't work. You can't, it doesn't work for everybody. And he tried. Okay, that's probably half the balls that I have the audacity to do, is to go try something new like that. Right? So it failed. It doesn't work. Okay? You go say something, you got to live in it. And, he has said some things about professional wrestling, especially in the WWE, that makes you believe that, all right, he's just not, I don't know, there's just something that rubs off for me with him the wrong way. You can't go out there and portray yourself as the greatest of all time, that the world is going to love you, and then be able to reap in the glory after being gone for 8 years. And you don't come back and you don't do anything. Now, over this, listen, injuries have, come and gone. It's the nature of the beast when it comes down to any sport, especially in wrestling. So there's no doubt that, hey, he's gotten hurt. He's tried to reach to the top. He's gotten hurt. That's put him back. He's back now. Hopefully he stays healthy. Okay. So I'm trying to find something that I can give him to kind of better his credibility, because he's not a terrible person. Okay, I will admit to that. He's not a terrible person. But CM Punk, to me, rubs me off the wrong way. I wouldn't necessarily want to meet him in person. Okay, if he shows up to Cavalcada Customs next year signing autograph, I wouldn't jump in joy like I did with Bryan Danielson. Because it doesn't, he's not a guy that, for me, he was a movement pusher, but he doesn't push it anymore. I feel like he takes more credit than what he's earned. Let me say it that way. So, a drama backstage affiliated with him, whether it's true or not, captivates my eyes, and I'm like, oh, here we go again. It makes me wonder, how long does Tony Khan, AEW, or any wrestling, company says, all right, we're going to put up with that. Sometimes, just like, listen, I don't know how basketball does it. They embrace all the negativity. Football is trying to do the same thing. It's a hit or miss. College football is trying to find negativity so that they can make headlines in the news. And we'll talk about that in the later on episode later today. And baseball doesn't put up with it. So it doesn't work. All right, other news here in professional wrestling. So we got to talk about Payback here tomorrow on Friday. But Kurt Angle comes out and says, hey, I want my last match to be against John Cena instead of that Baron Corbin. I actually got an article here for you. Let me read it. This was actually an article on SB Nation. I'm actually reading this on Wrestling Inc. It says, headlines, Kurt Angle had wanted to wrestle John Cena in WWE's last match. Now, I personally feel, I think a lot of people can agree with me on this, that it was a complete story. It should have been John Cena. I mean, realistically, when he was back and he was active back in the WWE, who did you think that he could potentially put over that would have impacted their career as a rookie? And I just didn't have no one off the top of my head. I mean, Baron Corbin beating Kurt Angle didn't elevate Baron Corbin's career. Okay, that was already hit the can before Kurt Angle came back. But Kurt Angle discussed why he decided to hang up his boots earlier than initially intended and talked about facing Baron Corbin. While speaking on Insight with Chris Van Vliet, Angle said that he chose to retire because he looked old inside the ring and was not his usual self. And I think that's important to capture here. Kurt Angle admittedly is admitting, I look it, I feel it, and maybe it's finally time. Goes on and says, and I quote, I was doing a program with Baron Corbin when I decided I was going to retire. The reason why I decided to retire is because I wasn't me anymore. I was a half a step behind. I looked like I was old. When I was wrestling, I didn't like what I saw. Vince wanted me to keep wrestling. Angle revealed that he wanted to face John Cena instead of Baron Corbin. And he recalled the conversation to Vince McMahon. He says, and I quote, I asked Vince, hey, can I have John Cena? Because I started his career. I think it'd be proper if he ended my career. And Vince said, no, you have Baron Corbin. You've been doing a program with him for 6 months. You have to continue. But if you want Cena, you can have him next year. Angles goes on and says, well, I'm going to go this WrestleMania. And he said, well, then you're going to wrestle Baron Corbin. Are you okay with that? I said, yeah, that's fine. So I wasn't able to get Cena, but he gave me an option. So let's remember, and just highlight this. This was Kurt Angle's decision to hang it up right then and there. Okay, he didn't decide that, hey, maybe, okay, I'll take a year off of wrestling and I'll get with John Cena maybe 8 months in advance and say, hey, I want you to end my career at next year's Mania. Can you and I choreograph one match? Angle didn't like that, apparently. He wanted to end it now. Instead of working, and listen, I can't get mad at Vince McMahon because, yeah, when you have a feud, and WWE's done this in the past where you've gotten rid of some, you started a storyline and then ultimately stopped it because something didn't work out. So to be able to say, hey, you're going to follow through with that storyline, I'm okay with it. I'm actually supportive of it. And unfortunately, I understand, I see where Vince McMahon's at because he's saying, listen, you've been doing this for the past 7 months. You need to finish the story first. And then if you want Cena, go have Cena. Kurt Angle did not want to wait. You can't blame a guy. Okay? The rest of the article says following a 10-year run in TNA, Kurt Angle returned to the WWE in 2017 to be inducted into the company's Hall of Fame and have one final in-ring run. However, despite a promising start where he was a featured performer, he didn't get to see out his wrestling contract and decided to retire early. All I can say with that, in my initial opinion, is that he made his own decision. And I think that is very difficult as a professional wrestler to make the decision on when it's time to hang up your boots. We've seen it in wrestlers all the time that just always find a way to stay in ring active. And sometimes they go up until their deaths. But Kurt Angle was like, no, I'm done. I don't feel the same. I don't look the same. I'm not in shape. So I don't tarnish or put a scar on my legacy that I'm leaving behind. The gold medalist. It's time to hang it up. And I think that's a bold move for Kurt Angle. I think that Kurt Angle has done it appropriately. But remember, let's understanding that it was his decision. I think we can, as a Kurt Angle fan, we can hold on to that a little bit better. Let's take a break and talk about the NFC North coming up next. You guys are listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. What's going on, everyone? Justin here from the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to you, the listeners. That's right. Without you guys, none of this is possible. I would also like to take the time and invite you out to our merchandise page, thanks to T Public. Our merchandise page is where you can find all of our brandings from the Throw-In, which is currently active weekly, to the TNC Sports Talk official brands, to either the prior shows that was part of the TNC Sports Talk Foundation. Within all the brandings, you can select t-shirts in both men and female sizes, apparel such as hoodies, kids onesies, kids t-shirts, phone cases, notebooks, coffee mugs. They have a vast majority. This is why I love T Public. And right now, if you spend $80 or more, you get free shipping. And so we want to invite you out to our merchandise page by heading on over to tpublic.com/user/TNC-sports-talk, or even using the QR code up in the right-hand corner. We want to thank you guys again, the listeners, for supporting us, and we hope to see you guys out there in our merchandise. Alrighty. Want to give a big shout out to Epidemic Sound for providing the music coming back from breaks. Epidemic Sound, discovering your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com. I want to remind you guys we will have another episode coming up later on today. And in that episode, we'll talk about the NFC South. We'll also talk about some college game day activities and more. So just stay tuned. After this program, we'll get set up. Got a couple things I got to do, and we'll have one out. We'll see. All right, but it's time to talk about some NFC North action. And this is let me put it to you this way. You got, let me go back. I have the NFC South. All right, so we got the Chicago Bears, we got the Detroit Lions, we got the Minnesota Vikings, and we got the Green Bay Packers. And what's interesting in this division is that this is an era without Brett Favre, without Aaron Rodgers. And Jordan Love is going to get full reins and control of the NFC North. And I've always looked at Jordan Love as a good quarterback, backup quarterback. Just like Aaron Rodgers was a good backup quarterback behind Brett Favre. Now, I hope and I do believe that this pattern, this tradition, at least, and it's rare to see where you can leave a franchise quarterback like Brett Favre, for example, Brett Favre, and be able to have another quarterback fall right into place and have a good amount of similar success to the previous quarterback. And it would be even more rare to have that happen 3 times. Okay, so, I mean, I just haven't not seen, for example, Tom Brady left and, Mac Jones comes in and he's kind of canned the team. I mean, almost Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson in comparison, I guess. But Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes, well, we gotten better. I mean, maybe a thought from Drew Brees to Phillip Rivers, but he never got a Super Bowl championship. So I feel like this is a historical moment, especially if Jordan Love can take this team on his first official, start, as a starting quarterback for the season. And he has to face again, goes up against, Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins, Detroit Lions. Other than that, no. We've seen Detroit grow. We've seen the Lions get better. They actually sabotaged the Packers' playoff opportunity. I mean, we saw how good the Minnesota Vikings were. I feel like it's anybody's game this year in the NFC North. And I don't necessarily see 2 teams coming out heading to the postseason. But if Jordan, maybe Justin Fields has a year, maybe Jared Goff could have a year and they actually show that they are improving, then who knows? Maybe we'll see 10, 12, 13 win game seasons out of this division. So let's get right down into business and talk about the Chicago Bears and their upcoming 2023 schedule, where they kick things off against the Green Bay Packers at home, Soldier Field. I feel like the Bears are going to be as good as they are going to get. I feel like they are about a 500 ball club, in my opinion. I'm picking the first game I'm picking between in week 1 is that the Bears are going to drop the loss to the Packers. Jordan Love's going to come in and just handle business. It's going to be a good, entertaining game. It's going to be a close game. You'll see Jordan Love versus Justin Fields. We'll talk a lot about it next week. But I truly believe Justin Fields, Bears start off 0-1. Then they head to Tampa Bay, at which I believe they'll beat the Buccaneers. They'll pick up the first win of the season. They head to Kansas City to face the Chiefs. That's going to be an L. Come back home for the Broncos. They could pick up a win. And the first 5 games, because I had them beating the Commanders, they are 3-2. I wouldn't be so disappointed in that, a matter of fact. They're going to be facing the Vikings, and I think the Vikings will hold off on a win on the road in week 6. Then you face the Raiders and Jimmy Garoppolo, which this will be a Raiders victory. And then they head to Los Angeles facing the Chargers, at which they will lose against the Chargers before heading over to face Derek Carr in week 9 against the Saints. That right there, I believe it's going to be another loss, in my opinion. We'll get to week 10 with the Carolina Panthers. I think that they'll pick up a victory then. I feel like they'll pick up the victory against the Detroit Lions week 11. Actually, you know what? Excuse me. I think they'll lose against the Detroit Lions on the road in week 11. I think they'll beat Minnesota in week 12 against the Vikings before having a bye week. And I don't know. Let me ask you this personally. What do you guys believe in? Do you guys believe in having the bye somewhere down the middle of the schedule? 8-9 weeks? Do you believe having it up front? Do you believe having it back? Personally, for me, I absolutely hate the bye week if you had week 5. I was going through it. I think Tampa Bay has their first bye week in week 5. And I absolutely hate it, in my opinion, because then you have to rely a nice 10, 12 game stretch on the back end of the season that probably ends up winding you out. Detroit Lions having to buy anything past 8 weeks or greater, for me, kind of gives you that, hey, all right, let me kick off the first half of the season and then kick off the second half of the season. All right, so then we continue with the Detroit Lions at home. I think they'll pick up a victory. Then I think that they'll lose in Cleveland against the Browns, followed by a win against Arizona at home. They will pick up a win, I believe, on week 17 against the Atlanta Falcons before losing to the Green Bay Packers at the end of the season, which leads out a total of, they're going to finish off the season 8-9. My prediction. They're not going to be a great team, but they'll be, I think, they're going to show a little bit improvement, especially when you look into someone like Justin Fields. Now, I went out there and said I think Justin Fields needed to have a season last year. And I'm a bit disappointed that didn't happen. Now, I don't know. I don't think they made too much more of an improvement from last year, but I think when you take someone as impactful like Jordan, like Aaron Rodgers out of the equation, you also don't have Tom Brady anymore. No more Jimmy Garoppolo, no more Trey Lance for that matter. Well, maybe Trey Lance, but you're not facing the Cowboys. You're not facing the Eagles. I feel like that's a much better season. Because you're facing the South, which I think the South is a vulnerable division in the NFC. Let's jump sail to the Detroit Lions here. Jared Goff comes back, and they sabotaged a playoff opportunity for the Green Bay Packers. And I think that's really cool. And I think if you have any motivation, you need to be thriving off of that. You bring back Jared Goff, and you give yourself another opportunity. I think this division's open in the air, especially Detroit. I wouldn't be surprised to see Detroit contending throughout the course of the season. They did it last year, but now they also have room to improve. So they're taking, we're going to see early on if they're going to take the step forward. But their schedule is probably not as, it's a little bit more complicated. And here's why. You kick things off against the Chiefs in week 1. And right there, that's just a red flag. Then you come home to face Geno Smith and the Seahawks. I feel like the Lions will start the season off 0-2, unfortunately. Before then, they will pick up a win against the Atlanta Falcons. And that's not even going to be an easy game. They'll head to Green Bay, facing Jordan Love. It's a Thursday night football game. I think in Green Bay has the advantage, and they would win, especially if they're looking to bounce back from the end of last season. Lions will beat the Panthers. The Lions could beat the Buccaneers on the road. Then they get to Baltimore, and they'll drop to Baltimore. And then on a Monday night game, they'll go be home. And I think this is I think they could beat the Las Vegas Raiders before they have the bye week in week 9. Which means that you have 1, 2, 3, 4. They're 4-4 the first half of the season. Another about 500 team. They will go over to the Los Angeles Chargers. I actually think that they'll beat the Chargers in week 10. What do I have them facing? The Bears. In week 11, they're beating the Bears. In week 12 at home against Jordan Love, another Thursday night football game, I think that they'll actually split and beat the Green Bay Packers. They'll lose to the Saints. Then they'll lose to the Bears in week number 14, followed by a win at home against the Broncos in 15. You go on and you'll actually split the series against Minnesota, where you lose week 16, and then they lost against Dallas when they pick up a victory against the Vikings in week number 18. Which of me, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9-8 record. So the Detroit Lions are going to be 9. I predict that the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears are going to play 500 baseball this season. Like I mentioned, it's anybody's ball game. And I truly stand to that testimony in the NFC North. When we come on back, we'll wrap up the NFC North conversation and wrap up our program. Episode 1 of 2 today as we finish covering from yesterday. You guys are listening to The Throw-In here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
I know we only met just now, and I don't wanna freak you out, no. But baby,
You know, I am a bit nervous about submitting preseason predictions for how the season's going to go in a preview. My thing is that I strongly believe that in the NFC North it's going to be up to anybody. And I hope, I mean, I guess I'm scratching my head trying to figure out where in the world does Minnesota Vikings come up with the division win? Right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback. He gets hurt often. And you can't play an entire season if it's known that you're beginning the season off or within the first few weeks playing with an ankle injury or a wrist injury. I feel like that right there builds a empathetic or sympathetic, in that matter, case for you on a fan base level. And I'm not like angry at it. It's just I feel sometimes it's annoying. Lately, Aaron Rodgers last couple seasons got hurt, and I hope that this year Jordan Love is going to have the full reins, and I'm excited to see what Jordan Love has to do. And I hope that he has just the amount of success that both Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre has had in the past. And I feel like that's going to be a fun season. I feel like Green Bay is in a good position. Detroit Lions seem like they keep on getting better, and hopefully they can continue to get better. I feel like they are. I feel bad for Chicago Bears because, especially for Justin Fields. And I don't know. I'm not ready to hang up the boots on Justin Fields quite yet. I still think he's an average quarterback. He's an average. He's better than Kyle Murray, I will say. Definitely better than Baker Mayfield. Be sure to tune us in a little later on this afternoon as we will cover, and for another 2 hours, as we'll provide today's highlights and news, and we'll cover the NFC South, as well as NCAA college football game day begins tonight. A couple great matchups that we get to talk about. All right, let's get back into the college football region in the NFC North. I'm going to get to the Packers here and their schedule, where they kick things off against the Bears. I have them winning. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have them win both games. Let me just pencil that in. So week 1, week 18. Let's see how they do against the Lions. A win. A loss. So they'll win. All right. All right. So week 1, they'll beat the Bears. Week 2, they will beat the Falcons. I mean, I understand that the Falcons have one of the better defenses in the NFL, at least in the NFC. But I don't think offensively they have what it takes to put up 20 plus points a game to win a ball game. Matter of fact, I think Atlanta is one of those less compelling teams. I think they'll have a crappy year this year. Now, I've seen it already where people are voting in an open league, anybody's game. Matter of fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and say maybe that no one in the NFC South is going to win 10 plus games. All right, next they take on Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints. And I think experience plays a factor in this one, with the Saints picking up the victory. They'll beat the Lions on Thursday Night Football, followed by a Monday Night Football in Las Vegas against Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think the Raiders could pull off a victory there. Followed by a bye week. They'll go to Denver and beat Russell Wilson. They'll come home and face Minnesota, which I think they'll pick up a victory. I think they're in good hands. They'll be also home to the Rams, and they'll pick up another victory against Matthew Stafford before heading to Pittsburgh. And I can see the Steelers and Kenny Pickett beating the Packers at home. They'll come home and face the Chargers. First time Jordan Love and Justin Herbert will meet. And I feel like the Packers have what it takes. They'll lose Thanksgiving Day against the Lions on the road, followed by a loss against the Kansas City Chiefs at home. They'll head to New York and beat the Giants on the road, followed by a Baker Mayfield humiliation as they beat the Buccaneers. You'll go to Carolina and beat Bryce Young. And then you're on the road to Minnesota, which you'll lose, followed by a win against the Chicago Bears, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, an 11-6 record. Now, I don't know. Let's go through what the Minnesota Vikings have to offer here before I can make my ultimate decision on who's going to win the division. All right. We'll talk about the Minnesota Vikings coming up here after this quick video package. Alrighty. I want to encourage you guys to check out our good friends at Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. Their latest episode is remembering Terry Funk, who passed away last week at the age of 79. I'm sure they'll do a remembrance episode of Bray Wyatt. I'm hoping. I text Steve today asking if they're doing a pay-per-view preview of Payback. I know Dwaylen is dealing with some family emergency, so our prayers and wishes go out to the friends, to Dwaylen and his family, and I hope that everything is okay. But Steve and Dwaylen, two old high school friends years ago, they're dinosaurs. I'm going to say that, okay? Dwaylen is an encyclopedia when it comes down to wrestling knowledge, and Steve brings the looks to the program. Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast is a wrestling podcast available on YouTube, so go like, share, and subscribe. Also, they're available on all audio streaming platforms, wherever you get your podcast at. If not, let them know. They'll find a way to get themselves up there, okay? You can also follow them on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and more. You can also check out their individual podcasts. Steve has a podcast called Cubicle Chat that he tries to upload each and every week. Just talking about random nonsense, stuff that, maybe, the old time cubicle conversations, and, he's about rock and roll and whatnot. So they kind of do movie reviews and, genres and stuff like that. Dwaylen has a podcast called Intellectual Podcast. So go check out their individual podcasts as well as Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. So thank them for doing what they're doing and keep up the good work. All right, let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings here. I think that the Vikings have a chance at this division. It's going to come down to how well they play against their own division during games. that I feel, and I feel like they're going to split 3-3. Kicking things off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I have no faith in Baker Mayfield. I apologize. I think Buccaneers are probably going to have one of the worst records this season as the Vikings beat the Buccaneers. They go on to Philadelphia and lose game 2 of the season, so they begin the season 1-1. They come home and face the Chargers, as which I think they'll pick up a victory against the Chargers. And this is actually a rare game. I think Bryce Young can win and beat the Carolina Panthers or beat the Vikings. So the Vikings will have a loss there. They'll begin the first 4 weeks 2-2, in my opinion, before coming home, losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. As a matter of fact, yeah, I mean, you know what? I think that they all should beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to go on a limb and say that Kirk Cousins will have an impressive victory. After you get embarrassed by Bryce Young, you come back home and you pick up a victory. The win against the Chicago Bears before going to Week 7 on a Monday Night Football game facing the 49ers, as which I think that they will lose again, before going on the road and beating the Packers on the road. Then they'll go over to Atlanta and face the Falcons, and they will beat the Falcons, followed by the the New Orleans Saints, excuse me, in Week 10, at which I think that they actually lose to the Saints, and then picking up a victory in Denver against the Broncos before a loss against the Chicago Bears before another Week 13 bye. So they should be 6-6. Then they'll head over to Las Vegas to lose against the Raiders. They'll lose against the Cincinnati Bengals. Then they'll pick up a victory over the Lions and the Packers before losing against the Detroit Lions in the final week of the season, which gives them a 8-9 record. And I feel if you compare every team in the NFC North, and I'm looking at this one, with the Eagles, the Chargers, the Chiefs, 49ers, okay, you got the Bengals in this one. The Vikings are probably going to have the most difficult season. Let's see how they compare here with the Packers. I mean, I don't really see too much of a challenge for Green Bay up until week 9 at best. And then you got the Chargers, the Chiefs, and that's it. The Packers, I think, have a steady season. The Lions, you got the Chiefs. You also got Seahawks right off the bat, which I think is going to be hard to come by, especially after you lose against the Chiefs. And I feel like this is an unfair advantage for Detroit. Week 1 next Thursday Night Football against the Chiefs. I'm just not a favorite. The game's not even interesting to me. I mean, there's nothing compelling. I would love to see Kansas City. I mean, I feel like this is a walk in the park for Kansas City. Like, NFL's given them a must-win game. And if you're asking me, I would honestly, either a Super Bowl rematch right off the start of the season or facing their division. I would love to see first game of the season be between the Chiefs and the Chargers, especially with the new contract that Justin Herbert signed. But Detroit gets off to 2 tough games right away. Before then you get Baltimore, I think will be challenging this year in week 7, the Chargers again. And that's it. I mean, and then you play in probably about 500 football. The Bears, like I said, the struggles I think continue. You got Green Bay and then Kansas City. You'd also get the Chargers. I'm just looking down the list here. I mean, that's pretty much it. And I just think other than that, those are tough teams. I think that that these teams, that this division is going to have to face individually. Excuse me. Allergies are blaring up. But other than that, if you're asking me an all honest opinion, Lions are a little bit better than 500. They're facing some tough teams. The Bears are about 500 football. I think the Vikings can be better than 500 football, but I think they're about 500 football. If you tackle that on with the amount of, I say that with the amount of difficulties that each team possesses, then you're kind of like, okay, it kind of makes sense now. So in this respect, I mean, I have Green Bay Packers winning the NFC South. They're the sole team in the division that goes on to the playoffs. Detroit Lions come in second. I will have, let me see how this goes. 1, 2. So then it will be the Vikings and then the Bears in that order. But maybe minus a game or two from Green Bay. I mean, I have high expectations and high hopes for Jordan Love because he's been around and he's been the backup for a couple years now for Aaron Rodgers. And there's just something about Love that I enjoy watching and that I really like. So I think the Packers have a good chance at this division, but that doesn't say that he comes out and maybe he's not a starting quarterback as people hope or expect. But there are high expectations. So, and that's the new thing that's coming out of Green Bay. All right. We are done with this program. Like I said, keep an eye out for our next upcoming program coming up this evening where we talk about the NFC South. We'll talk about some NCAA conflicts that are being addressed and much more. That's all the time we have for you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And until next episode, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you guys for tuning in to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.